Good afternoon. Welcome to Grade 10 Civics. I'm your teacher, Mr. Fisher. This isn't really what I had planned when I was thinking about you guys coming in the second half of semester 2, but it's a brave new world. And so here we are doing this emergency teaching online. I hope we're back in the building before the end of June so we can actually meet in person and have much better interactions. But for now, we're going to do things like this, and I think it's going to work out fine. Little structure, little organization. My plan for now is that I'm going to come to you twice a week in this format. You come onto Google Classroom. There's a video lesson just like this one that you've clicked on. I'm thinking Monday and Wednesday afternoons. I'd post it around lunchtime. And then I've got work for you, things for you to do. You can send me a Google Doc with your work. I can get back to you. And if you're busy Monday and Wednesday afternoons, or, if you're all sharing one computer at home and mom and dad are working and it's difficult, since this is all taped, you look at it when you can look at it. Maybe it's on the weekend, maybe it's early in the morning, whatever is best for you. All right, so this is a half credit. We're from here to the end of the semester. You just finished careers with Miss Stevens. So this is a completely different course. It is not connected in any way. So whether you passed or didn't pass careers has no bearing at all on this course. This is separate. So in terms of the structure, we're going to do the same thing we would do in the classroom. 70% term work, 30% is going to be a final exam. If we're back in the building, we'll do the exam the old-fashioned way, paper and pencil, on the last day of classes, or around that time. But if we're not, we're going to do it online. I spoke with Ms. Jenner. She teaches a lot of the civics classes here at Stratford Secondary, and we decided that we would put together an exam, a shared exam. So you'll get the same exam that Ms. Jenner's classes get, and we're going to have to find a way to do this online. And we've not really done that before. So this is an exciting learning experience for us too. So in terms of the structure, normally you'd have a notebook. Maybe some of you are still using a notebook, but there are going to be several assignments that will be assessed, which means they're going to be marked, and they make up your term mark. We're going to have a test. That will all be part of your term between now and, say, mid-June, and then the exam at the end of June. I'm going to want you to have 2 Google Docs sort of running on a regular basis that you can share with me when the time comes. One will be simple class notes. So you can even call this, my civics notes or something to that effect. And those are notes that you'll need for the test and for the final exam. And we're going to be doing another long-running project that's very important called your Citizens Handbook. So this will be a separate Google Doc. This one you're not going to share with me for quite a while, but you do need to keep up on it. Because if you don't, you fall behind, and that's just a mess. You do need to keep up with that. So more on that as we go along. Just looking at my little cheat sheet, my little notes here. I think what we're going to do, and we do have a couple of textbooks available digitally. I have not uploaded them to Google Classroom just yet. They're not great. And I don't use them a whole lot, but from time to time, there might be something useful. If they are, I'll give you a heads up. I'll say, hey, it's here in Google Classroom. Just scroll down, have a look at this, read that, and that will sort of inform some of our learning. But for the most part, not so much with the textbook. So I think we're going to start with some people. When I was in high school, about 1,000 years ago, it was all about names and dates and factual recall. We can Google a lot of that stuff today. It's not that important. But there are a few people from a Canadian civics point of view who are important. Civics is about government and how we govern ourselves. Now, some people say, oh, I don't like politics. I don't like government, politicians. That's fine. But it is important to understand they have an enormous impact on our life. Just think about today. The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, said, schools are closed until further notice. That's changed all of our lives. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has been putting restrictions on what we can and can't do, and most of it's things that we can't do. The mayor of Stratford, Dan Matheson, said we're closing the city parks, the slides, the swings, the playgrounds. Those three levels of government, our federal government in Ottawa, led by Justin Trudeau, our provincial government, led by Doug Ford, and our local government, led by Dan Matheson, they clearly have an enormous impact on our lives. And so that's why we learn about this. So we understand, how does this work? How do we choose people? What if we choose someone we don't like them? Oh, I'd rather have somebody else. How does all that work? And of course, I'm aware that some of you don't live in Stratford. Some of you are in Perth East. A few of you are in Perth South. I don't think anyone in Perth North. Maybe. You have your own mayor. And in my notes at work, I have their names. I don't have them here. But they do have an impact as well. If you're in Sebringville or in Shakespeare, you have a different local government, Milverton, Gads Hill, etc. So what we're going to do today, in your notes, I'm going to ask you to create a Google Doc that you're going to call my class notes or my civics notes. And, since I'm on YouTube here, you can pause anytime. Maybe pause now and set that up. All right. So, the 5 key players in our lives here in Perth County. First would be our Prime Minister, and I think you know that is Justin Trudeau. He is from the Liberal Party, and I would encourage you to write that in your notes. If you're not sure of the spelling, you can Google all of this. The Premier of our province is Doug Ford. He's not from the Liberal Party. He's from the Conservative Party. We have quite a few political parties in Canada. Locally here, if you live in Stratford, we have Mayor Dan Matheson. Matheson's a little tricky. There's a letter I in there. Again, I'm going to let you do a little bit of work. Google that. Get the spelling right. We don't have political parties at the local level. So we don't really know, is Dan Matheson a Liberal, a Conservative, an NDP, or a Green, or something else? He doesn't have that title. He was simply chosen by the people of Stratford. 2 more that you might not know. One of them is our Member of Parliament, and you should check the spelling of Parliament as well. Justin Trudeau is at the head of our Parliament up in Ottawa, but he doesn't run the whole country himself. He's not our king or emperor. He is one member of the House of Commons. There are 338 members of Parliament in all, one from each area around the country. And our Member of Parliament, do you know? His name is John Nater, N-A-T-E-R. Mitchell boy, Mitchell, Ontario, born and raised, still lives there with his young family. He is our Member of Parliament, elected by your parents to represent us in the Parliament up in Ottawa. So he knows Justin Trudeau, and I think Justin Trudeau probably knows John Nader. There's just 338 of them after all. Now, he's in the Conservative Party, so he's not part of Justin Trudeau's government because he's a Liberal. And I know this is confusing, but we'll make some sense of this as we go along. Now, here's one more. This is a bonus prize. If we were all together, I'd have a little chocolate in my locker if anyone knows this one. The 5th person we should know is our member of the Provincial Parliament, or MPP. This is our representative in the provincial legislature in Toronto. Because again, Doug Ford, our premier, doesn't run the province by himself. We have a legislature. And our member, his name is Randy Pettipies. He's from the Listowel area. He represents all of us in Perth County and some folks in Wellington County as well in the provincial legislature. He is also Conservative Party. So he and Doug Ford know each other pretty well because they're both conservatives. When the conservative MPPs get together in a room, and it's a small enough group that they can do that in a large room, they're on a first-name basis. So if our Premier, Doug Ford, wants to know what's going on in Stratford or anywhere in Perth County, he talks to Randy. And if Randy has a concern that maybe the Premier doesn't know about, Doug Ford's a Toronto guy, born and raised, that's his opportunity to say, hey, you might not know, but in Perth County, we've got a problem, we have an issue, we need some help with this. He can talk to Doug Ford about that. Alrighty, so that should be in your notes. Now, the other Google Doc I want you to open is called the Citizens Handbook. So again, I'm going to pause for a moment, and you can set yourself up a Google Doc called Citizens Handbook. Dun, 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 dun. All right, now we're back. My son is here. He's working from home and thinks I'm a little ridiculous, but he's graduated high school. He can say that, I guess. Our Citizens Handbook is going to be a major part of our assessment, meaning the mark that you get in this course. It's going to be an ongoing assignment. It's going to take up the bulk of your time. So when I leave you work to do, it's often going to be a Citizens Handbook writing assignment. So you're going to be working. We don't have that opportunity to converse a lot the way we would in the classroom. So you're going to be working on your writing skills, which is very important. Your writing skills this year. So what I'm going to do is, with a Citizens Handbook writing assignment, I'm going to give you a topic, a difficult, controversial topic. Controversial means people don't agree on it. And I'm going to ask you to write about it. I'm going to ask you to sort of assess things, look at both sides of the issue, take a stand, and then write in about 300 or 400 words what you think. It's an opinion, but it's an informed opinion. So I don't just want your opinion. I want your opinion based on evidence. That's an informed opinion. That's a lot better than just, well, I think this or I think that. So our first topic, and we're going to work on this next day. I got a little bit for you to work on now. Don't think you're going to get off easy. But on Monday, we'll look at the bulk of this. For today, this is your home, and this is your work for today and tomorrow. I won't be with you tomorrow. I won't be back with you till Monday, but this gives you some time to work on this. We're going to look at controversial issues, and we're going to look at one that relates to Justin Trudeau, our new Prime Minister. 5 years ago, oh geez, you guys were in grade 5. You were little kids. Do you remember who our Prime Minister was 5 years ago? Think about that. Do you remember? Some of you do. Stephen Harper. He'd been in for almost a decade. That's a pretty good run for a politician to be in that long. He was from the Conservative Party, and he announced an election for the fall of 2015. He was running again. And the Liberals, led now by Justin Trudeau, he was their new leader. One of the things they said was, elect us, we are going to legalize marijuana. It hadn't been done before. Legalize. At that time, it was a criminal offense to have marijuana, to grow it, to sell it. Trudeau was saying, no, we got to change all that. We should legalize it. Well, he got elected, and he said, I'm going to keep this promise. It did take him a long time, almost 3 years, which seems kind of long, but he finally did legalize the use of marijuana. There are pot shops set up. There aren't a lot yet, but more are coming. It's legal for you to grow it. It's legal for you, now, if you're of legal age, mind you. But he's legalized this. And some Canadians, millions of Canadians, think this is a great idea. Well done, Justin. But millions of people don't think it's a great idea. Justin, you should not, I know you promised this, but you shouldn't have done this. It's bad. So there are pros and cons to this, advantages and disadvantages to the legalization of marijuana or weed or whatever you choose to call it. So what I'm going to ask you to do, just to sink your teeth into this a little bit, in your Google Doc called Citizens Handbook, I want you to make a T-chart. A T-chart is just a chart with 2 columns with a line down the middle. I mean, you can do this on paper as well. I want you to first think about the pros, the good things about legalizing marijuana, and the cons, the bad things about legalizing marijuana. Now, in this case, I want you to spend your time thinking. Thinking. Imagine that. You're in school and you're thinking. I don't want you to just, well, I think this or I think that. I want you to get into the habit of looking at both sides of an issue. Even if you strongly stand on one side and not the other. You may already have a strong opinion on marijuana, but I want you to open your mind and look at both sides. So on that T-chart, I want you to make a list of 4 or 5 good things, pros, about legalizing marijuana, and 4 or 5 bad things, cons, of legalizing marijuana. Now, some of that you can do off the top of your head, or maybe personal experience, people you know, what you think. But a little bit of research is required here. You have Google at your disposal. It's free. You can Google something like pros and cons of legalizing marijuana. This isn't rocket science. And look at the different points of view and complete your list. So you've got 4 or 5 pros, 4 or 5 cons. That's what I want you to do for today. We're going to come together again on Monday and talk about those pros and cons. And then I'm going to show you how to do your first Citizens Handbook writing assignment. I'll also upload a rubric sort of explaining what exactly how this will be assessed. But anyway, so I want you to start on this. Make yourself a chart, pros and cons of legalizing marijuana. Come up with 4 or 5 in each column. Even if you personally don't agree with the pros or don't agree with the cons, that's okay. You should still be open-minded enough that you can make a list and you can understand other people's points of view. That's so important in civics and in democracy in a free country like Canada. So work on that. Create that. We'll come back to that on Monday in the afternoon. I tape these things in the morning or the night before. I think I'm just going to upload them around 12:30 in the afternoon, so at least you know when they're coming. But I realize people are busy. Some of you are working. Some of you are working in essential services like grocery stores, and I applaud you. I have to admit, I'm 54 years old. I have never in my life thought of grocery store workers as essential workers, but absolutely I do now. I applaud you if you're working there, if your mom or dad or friends or neighbors are working there. I have a nurse who's a next door neighbor. These are wonderful people. They are helping us to get through. So whenever you have time to work on this, work on it, but make sure before Monday you've got this done so that when we come back to this, you're ready to go. Alrighty? All right, hang in there. I'm learning as you are. I've never done this online. How do you teach a course online when you've always done the classroom? It's going to be tough, but it's going to be interesting. It might even be fun at times. Take care. Bye-bye.